Howdy y'all, welcome back. Thank you for being here. Today, we will take a deep dive into the incredible first photographs of the Paris catacombs. These images are attributed to Gaspard Felix Nadar, better known by his pseudonym Nadar. Taken in the year 1861, to make these photographs possible, a cutting-edge new form of artificial light was utilized, known as the serene arc lamp. Given the fine detail and spectacular lighting we see in these images, one can only imagine that this brand new artificial light was very successful. Furthermore, there are some incredible pieces of architecture that we see once existed within the Paris catacombs. What appears to be intricate masonry assorted among the displays of decay. And what to make of all the symbolism. Keep in mind, we're told the catacombs of Paris were rebuilt sometime after being reduced to rubble during the French Revolution, meaning the organizations and secret societies that took hold of Paris following the revolution most likely played a key role in the design of the catacombs as we see them in 1861. Our photographer Felix was born in Paris to a rather affluent family in 1820. Felix's father was a leading book producer of Paris, leading Felix to join an unnamed Parisian bohemian fraternal order in the late 1840s. By 1853, this order had introduced Felix to photography, which he took to with gusto. By 1854, the narrative claims he had opened one of the largest photography studios in all of Paris, and by 1858, he used the funds from his studio to begin a lifelong obsession with air travel. That same year, 1858, Felix took what is claimed to be the first aerial photograph in history from a hot air balloon. Following the photographs of the catacombs, in 1864, Felix commissioned what was at that time the largest balloon in history, known as the Giant, which measured over 196 feet tall when inflated. This giant balloon actually had a rather large wicker carriage, almost like a small cabin, that sat below it, and in 1867, Felix was said to have held a dinner party inside this carriage several hundred feet in the air. This event was witnessed by thousands. However, the thing it appears Felix is most famous for would have to be these photographs of the catacombs, taken in 1861. Once these photographs were presented at the World's Fair of London in 1862, Felix became somewhat of a household name amongst the European elite. As the story goes, Felix had asked for many years to gain access to the catacombs of Paris, which were off limits to most people. However, following his success as a photographer and promising to be able to actually produce quality photographs of the catacombs using the arc lamp, Felix was granted access. What he discovered was nothing short of breathtaking. As the story of the catacombs goes, things get even stranger. According to the current narrative, since Roman times, people have been digging mines and wells beneath the city of Paris. When first occupied by Romans, most of the city's population was to the left bank of Paris. However, following the Frankish invasion, the population migrated mostly to the right bank of Paris. The abandoned left bank was then used for the construction of burial pits and mounds, which after many years proceeded to take up much of this left bank. Then once the left bank was almost entirely full of these burials, the swampy marshland between the left and right bank began to be used for additional burial space. However, in roughly the 10th century, urban projects began to artificially fill in these marshlands between the left and the right banks of Paris, looking to connect the two and extend the city. In doing so, it was discovered that hundreds of thousands of skeletons were buried within these burial mounds and pits, and these larger burial pits were then dug, and some of the ancient tunnels beneath Paris were also filled in to store these remains. These more concentrated but vastly larger burial pits throughout the centuries were added to, Churches were eventually built on top of them to mark the territory, and things went on that same way for many centuries until roughly the 18th. At this time, the pits again became overcrowded, and the architecture throughout Paris actually began to be affected by collapsing foundations and walls. We're told sometime before 1780, a selection of the subterranean tunnels of Paris was chosen to serve as the new location for the disposal of well over 1 million ancient skeletons, as well as gravestones, statues, relics, and other riches associated with these burial pits and mounds. Thus, the Paris catacombs were born. From a selection of the vast array of tunnels beneath Paris, the catacombs are just a tiny percentage of the overall subterranean system that sits far below the Parisian streets. The entry for the Paris catacombs was aptly named the Gate of Hell, and up until the French Revolution, the catacombs were a rather guarded and restricted place. However, during the French Revolution, the catacombs and dozens of miles of other tunnel systems were found, entered, looted, and destroyed. The catacombs' original design was said to be reduced to rubble, with many of the relics of the ancient past which were stored in the catacombs also being removed or defaced. It was only after the year 1810, well after the French Revolution, that the catacombs as we see them today began to take shape. The other tunnels beneath Paris, the miles and miles of subterranean city that has yet to be explored or excavated, could these systems all have been connected? Could they all have an ulterior purpose? Could they be evidence or residue of a last reset? Could they prove that Paris, like many other cities, has a layered history with foundations deeply rooted below the surface?